All praises. Shalom. Let me get this up on the screen. How y'all doing?
Doing well, and so
No complaints here.
all praises.
Oh, great.
All praises. So we should be told me out on visuals.
Mm-hmm.
All praises. So yeah, rebuilding the temple in you. Tie it all into Sukkot. Um, third part, but yeah, always something to build on, especially with a topic like this.
All praises.
All praises. So the question is, what was the purpose of Sukkot? Or for those that might be more familiar with Feast of Tabernacles, any takers? If not, it's cool. We got the whole lesson, but yeah,
All praises.
I'll be adventurous and try to answer. It was called the Feast of Ingathering, and it is for the ingathering of your harvest of the crops. Um, and so it was the preparation. Well, and I would also kind of say the preparation for the next coming year and everything, because when you ingather your crops, you also have to process your crops and all of that stuff. But there was a commandment that was given that you don't glean your field completely, so that other folks who don't have could have, But I that's what just comes to my mind. The purpose of Sukkot is the gathering of your harvest.
all praises. If we all told, okay, all praises, all praises. All right, so the reason for the season, right? So Leviticus 23:20 or 23:33 rather, it says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, on the 15th day of this seventh new moon or new month is the festival of Sukkot for 7 days to Yahuwah. On the first day is a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. For 7 days you bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. On the eighth day there shall be a set apart gathering for you, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. It is a closing festival. You do no servile work. These are the appointed times of which Yahuwah, the times of Yahuwah, which you proclaim as set apart gatherings to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, an ascendant offering and a grain offering, a slaughtering and drink offerings as commanded for every day. Besides the Shabbats of Yahuwah, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your voluntary offerings which you give to Yahuwah, on the 15th day of the seventh new moon or new month, when you gather in the fruit of the land, as Agati was just saying, celebrate the festival of Yahuwah for 7 days. On the first day is a rest, and on the eighth day a rest. You shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of the good trees of the tobe trees, branches of palm trees, twigs of leafy trees, and willows of the stream, and shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim for 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a festival to Yahuwah for 7 days in the year, a law forever in your generation. Celebrate it in the seventh new moon or new month. Dwell in booths for 7 days. All who are native born in Israel dwell in booths, so that your generations that I made, so that your generations know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Mizraim or Egypt. I am Yahuwah your Elohim. Thus did Moses speak of the appointed times of Yahuwah to the children of Israel. So we know this chapter is a layout of all of them, right? So here we are with Sukkot, right? So definitely keep in mind those highlighted things like you brought out a moment ago. Something about this in gathering, this harvest. We're gonna get into it. All right. So reason for the season. So you'll notice on the right side of the screen, we got some pictures, right? So just track these pictures as we start reading this chapter, because we're gonna see that yeah, there are 7 appointed or 7 Moedim, right? But even within those, there's significance put on 3 out of them that you're gonna have to do something even more, right? So I just put it that way. We'll get into it, but Deuteronomy 16, starting at verse 1, it says, guard the new moon of Abib, or the new month of Abib, right? Now, we just read that this was the closing of this cycle, right? Now, here we are at the beginning of this cycle, right? And we're going to follow it all the way through. So it says, and perform the Pesach, or the Passover, to Yahuwah your Elohim in the new moon or new month of Abib. Yahuwah your Elohim brought you out of Mizraim by night. Now, keep in mind, that Sukkot is, he said, because I want you to remember that I did this, right? That I brought you out of Mizraim, out of Egypt, out of this house of bondage. It says, and you shall slaughter the Passover to Yahuwah your Elohim from the flock and the herd in the place where Yahuwah chooses to put his name. Eat no leavened bread with it. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread with it, bread of affliction, because you came out of the land of Mizraim in haste. So that you remember the day in which you came out of the land of Mizraim all the days of your life. And no leaven should be seen with you and all your border for 7 days. Neither should any of the meat which you slaughter in the evening on the first day stay all night until morning. You are not allowed to slaughter the Passover or the Pesach within any of your gates which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you, but at the place where Yahuwah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell there, you slaughter the Pesach in the evening at the going down of the sun at the appointed time you came out of Mizraim. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahuwah your Elohim chooses. And in the morning you shall turn and go to your tents. 6 days you eat unleavened bread. On the 7th day there is a closing festival to Yahuwah your Elohim. You do no work. So you don't notice that this opening feast sound real similar to the closing feast, right? This first one and this last one, they mirror each other, right? This is the barley harvest, right? So the barley, like you can go in Exodus chapter 9, and they will show you how these things were coming up even in the time when Egypt was getting the plagues. They show you, well, certain things got destroyed because they was in a certain point of development. Certain things were okay because they hadn't sprung up yet, right? So you can go and look there if you want to, but for the sake of this right now, just keep in mind that Passover, unleavened bread, you're dealing with barley, right? All right, so continuing, Deuteronomy 16 verse 9 says, count 7 weeks for yourself. Begin to count 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the grain. And you shall perform the festival of Shavuot, or as some will say, Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, right? To Yahuwah your Elohim, according to the voluntary offering from your hand, which you give as Yahuwah your Elohim blesses you. And you shall rejoice before Yahuwah your Elohim, and you and your son and your daughter, and your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite who is within your gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are in your midst at the place where Yahuwah your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. So now with both of these, again, we keep talking about this dwelling place where the Father is supposed to be. This is where these are supposed to be done, right? Verse 12, it says, and you shall remember that you were a slave in Mizraim and shall guard to do all these laws. So now, again, we're seeing that with this feast day, again, keep pointing us back to this central thing. With all 3 of these that we done seen so far, the one thing that he wants us to remember is, remember, you was a slave in Mizraim. You was a slave in Egypt, and I got you out of that thing. So remember this, right? Remember this time in the wilderness. Remember this. Remember this.
Come on.
All praises. So Feast of Weeks, 7 weeks later, it's all timed perfectly. After the barley harvest starts and the barley starts to come up, Then you're going to notice that 7 weeks later, the next crop is just timed that way. If you start doing the research into these grains and how they operate, they're timed that way. 7 weeks later, then now it's time for wheat, and it's going to come up. So Feast of Weeks, wheat harvest, right? Now we're at the one that we really want to get at and focus on today, right? Verse 13, he says, perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your wine press. And you shall rejoice in your festival, you and your son and your daughter, your male servant and your female servant, and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. Same thing again. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahuwah your Elohim in the place which Yahuwah chooses. Same thing again. Because Yahuwah your Elohim does bless you, same thing again. And all your increasing and all the work of your hands, and you shall be only rejoicing. Now keep in mind, we looked at a few weeks ago in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah when they went back and they had the whole controversy there, and they came out and said, no, on this day, because it's the feast, this is a day of rejoicing, right? So just keep that in mind as we continue. 3 times a year, all your males appear before Yahuwah your Elohim in the place which he chooses, at the festival of Matzot or unleavened bread, and the festival of Shabuot, Feast of Weeks, and the festival of Sukkot, right? So that's why we're looking at these 3 in particular, right? Out of all of these appointed times. But each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of Yahuwah your Elohim, which he has given you. So now if you notice here, when we're dealing with Sukkot, we're dealing with the grapevine, which is why they're mentioning the wine press, right? We're dealing with the grapevines, we're dealing with the figs, we're dealing with pomegranates, you're gonna be dealing with olives. Like these are the summer fruits, fruit trees. That's the stuff that we're dealing with primarily. These are the main ones that they're harvesting, right? Now just keep all of this in mind, because as we go, we're gonna keep seeing like, oh no, this is a thing. This is really a thing that he's trying to show us with these feast days. It's something to be remembering, going back to something about this wilderness. So where did Israel dwell in booths? Kind of let the cat out the bag. Obviously, we all know at this point, the wilderness. But just in case you don't, we're going to read it. So Psalm 136, starting at verse 1, it says, give thanks to Yahuwah, for he is good, or he is told. For his loving commitment is everlasting. Give thanks to the Elohim of mighty ones. Yeah, Elohim of Elohim. For his loving commitment is everlasting. Give thanks to the master of masters. For his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who alone does great wonders. For his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who by wisdom made the heavens. For his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who spread the earth on the waters. For his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who made the great lights. For his loving commitment is everlasting. The sun to rule by day. For his loving commitment is everlasting. My goodness, can y'all imagine it? If that order wasn't right. And it's just like, it's just crazy. Like one day, we just couldn't imagine it. His loving commitment is everlasting. Like he designed all of these things thoughtfully so that you can survive in this thing, and not just survive, you can be fruitful and multiply and flourish in this thing. I've made this a place of function for everything in it. All you got to do is obey me and turn back to me, because guess what? My love and commitment is everlasting. Like, really is deep there. Verse 9, he says, the moon and stars to rule by night, for his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who struck Mitzrayim in their firstborn, for his loving commitment is everlasting. Now, notice all of these first ones was like, on the surface, at least seemingly, this is just general to all men. Oh, I reign on the just and the unjust. And now it's like we dealing with something very specific. Right? Everybody can't say that they got brought out of Mitzrayim and got brought out of Egypt. Everybody can't say that. Right? Like, no, this is something that I did in you. specifically. And not gonna get ahead of myself. All praises to him who struck Mizraim in their firstborn, for his loving commitment is everlasting, and brought out Israel from their midst, for his loving commitment is everlasting, with a strong hand, with the outstretched arm, for his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who split apart the sea of reeds, for his loving commitment is everlasting, and made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his loving commitment is everlasting. But shook off Pharaoh and his army in the sea of reeds, for his loving commitment is everlasting. To him who led his people through the wilderness, for his loving commitment is everlasting. So all of these things, I did these things because my loving commitment is everlasting.
And all we're instructed to do, not even by him, but by a servant, is to give thanks. Not just in word, to give thanks.
All praises. Oh, Deuteronomy 32, verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father and let him show you, your elders, and let them say to you, inheritance. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. And let them say to you, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the children of Israel. For the portion of Yahuwah is his people. Jacob has allotted inheritance. He found him in a wilderness and in a wasted, howling desert. He encompassed him. He made him understand. He watched over him as the apple of his eye. So we know that Israel dwelt in tents in the wilderness, right? We will see that there are things that we should remember during Sukkot about our dwellings in the wilderness that can assist us today. Identifying some of the things that took place in the wilderness will help prepare us for being in the presence of Elohim. So just keep this in mind in the broad scope of what this whole like little mini series has been about: rebuilding the temple, rebuilding it in you. How do we do this? How are we able to be in the presence of Elohim, right? So why were they in the wilderness, right? Why was they in this wilderness?
Come on.
Deuteronomy verse 8, or chapter 8, verse 2, right? Now, mind you, he said, I did this because of my love and commitment is everlasting.
Come on.
If I don't give you this chance, as we're going to see, to get this,
come on.
Well, it might end right here with me taking you out of here, and then I might go on. After I take you out, I'm going to deal with you. But my love and commitment is endures forever. So because of that, I know you can't go this way. We're going to see that in a minute. And you ain't ready for that. Let me take you through this way so you can get ready. Right? All praises.
Come on.
Deuteronomy 8, starting at verse 2. And you shall remember. Now, what was these feast days about?
Remembering things.
All praises. Literally every single one. He calling something to your mind. Remember. And specifically, it's like, remember what I did for you. Don't play me. Don't play yourself. Remember what I did for you. We're going to see.
Come on.
He says, and you shall remember that Yahuwah your Elohim led you all the way these 40 years in the wilderness to humble you, prove you, to know what is in your heart, whether you guard his commands or not. And he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Your garments did not wear out on you, nor did your foot swell these 40 years. Thus, you shall know in your heart that as a man disciplines his son, so Yahuwah your Elohim disciplines you, i.e., for his steadfast love endures forever. His loving commitment endures forever. Therefore, you shall guard the commands of Yahuwah your Elohim to walk in his ways and to fear him. For Yahuwah your Elohim is bringing you into a tob, or a good land, a land of streams of water, of fountains and springs that flow out, of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley, of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you dig copper, and you shall eat and be satisfied, and shall bless you who are your Elohim for the good land which he has given you. And verse 10 is speaking to, this is how you bless you who are your Elohim. These 3 times a year, you come and bring me the first one. Bring me what's mine, right? This is, we gonna see as we continue, there's a reason why I set this feast cycle up, and why at these particular times out of the year, and why, like, there's a reason why I'm doing all of this, because it's something that I want you to understand. All praises. So yeah, real interesting. Notice that the land that he's sending them into is tailor-made and specifically created in a way to where you're gonna be able to keep these set apart appointed times, right? Yes. As long as you just obey me and do what you're supposed to do, I'll make sure that you got barley in the season of barley. I'll make sure you got wheat. It's a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees. This land produces all these things. And guess what? You didn't even have to do the work for it. I already done made sure it's planted for you. You just walk on in and then maintain it. We back at the garden again.
Come on.
Right?
All praises.
All praises. Verse 11. He says, be on guard lest you forget Yahuwah your Elohim by not guarding his commands and his right rulings and his laws which I command you. So notice that these feast days was designed so that you don't do what? You don't forget. Thereby, you don't got to get purged out of the land. Thereby, because of your disobedience, you can hold on to this covenant. These feast days integral to you maintaining this covenant. I set them up in a way that even if you get it right, get it tight, right? Come back, go through these rehearsals, go through these cycles. You know what you're supposed to do. Make sure that you're taking care of spreading my fame before amongst the nations, the widows, the strangers, everybody that comes in, they gonna be able to eat out of the fields. Now I'm gonna get esteemed through you, right? It's the way that it's supposed to be. Is that what we did? Not quite, but but this was the setup, right? And it's set up and it's made in a way for us to win. He wasn't sending us into a barren land that wouldn't produce anything. Literally, he's sending us into a land that produces all these things. Like, all praises. So he says, be on guard lest you forget Yahuwah your Elohim by not guarding his commands and his right rulings and his laws, which I command you today, lest you eat and shall be satisfied and build lovely houses and shall dwell in them. And your herds and your flocks increase, and your silver and your gold are increased, and all that you have is increased. That your heart then becomes lifted up, and you forget Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim from the house of bondage, who led you through that great and awesome wilderness, fiery serpents and scorpions and thirst, where there was no water, who brought water for you out of the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your fathers did not know, in order to humble you and to try you, to do you good or tobe in the end. You then shall say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand have made for me this wealth. But you shall remember Yahuwah your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is today. And it shall be, if you by any means forget Yahuwah your Elohim and follow other mighty ones and serve them and bow yourself to them, I have warned you this day that you shall certainly perish. Like the nations which Yahuwah is destroying before you, I'm kicking them out of the land. So you are to perish because you did not obey the voice of Yahuwah your Elohim. So then we're going to see, well, we're not going to see that today. What we saw, I think it was the last time, how like he says, like, oh, for them 70 years, the land gonna get their Shabbats. Like all of what I was supposed to be getting, no, I'm gonna get it. It's gonna rest. You could have did it and been straight and have so much in your storehouse that for years on end, you ain't even got to worry about this year because you touching on stuff from the back end from years ago. That's how it's supposed to be. But you don't do what you're supposed to do, and we're going to see how that's going to end out. You get up out of here. Get up out of my house, right? All praises.
Yeah.
All praises. So the question then becomes, we know we was dwelling in the wilderness. And that's what he wants us to remember. But, well, why would he want us to remember that? Well, where was he dwelling?
Come on. Listen.
That part.
Come on.
Mm.
Come on.
Mm. All praises. So I mean, we gonna mosey our way there anyway. So if you got,
I was gonna say, because when we recall that whole first year that they came out from Egypt, they didn't have to celebrate tabernacles. He never left them. We were talking about this previously. He never left them through that pillar of cloud, through that pillar of fire. He was already there, leading them and guiding them by the hand. Literally took them like a hand, like a parent with a hand on their child. So they were already tabernacling with him. And then after that first year, they had to celebrate the tabernacles and so on and so forth. But literally, he was already there. And that's the thing that he desired and desires to do still, is be there. Holy God.
all praises. All praises. Spot on. Exodus 29:41. He says, and prepare the other lamb between the evenings. We back at the top again. And with it, prepare the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a continual ascending offering for your generations at the door of the tent of appointment before Yahuwah, the tent of meeting, where I shall meet with you and speak with you. And there I shall meet with the children of Israel, and it shall be set apart by my esteem. And I shall set apart the tent of appointment, or the tent of meeting, and the slaughter place. And Aaron and his sons I set apart to serve as priests to me, and I shall dwell in their midst, in the midst of the children of Israel, and shall be their Elohim. What was the covenant? So you're going to keep seeing how, no, that's why I want you to remember this time in the wilderness, because this is what this was about. It's about this covenant. And what I was trying to do with y'all, I wanted to dwell in your midst. And so remember that wilderness, go back to that, because I'm trying to still point you. I still want to dwell in your midst. Right?
Just the feast days give us a glimpse of what's to come, of what the promises are and what we're looking forward to, while we are awaiting for him to send his son back, Yahusha, and set the kingdom up. So it's beautiful for us to be able to recall to mind, because it's, hey, I haven't forgot about my people, though you guys still have to serve a period of time because of what what you guys did, but I have not forgotten about y'all. This is a reminder.
All praises. All praises. So I'm going to jump back to verse 45. He says, and I shall dwell in their midst, or in the midst of the children of Israel, and shall be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah their Elohim, who brought them up out of the land of Mizraim to dwell in their midst. So literally, why did he do it? So that he could dwell in our midst. He says, I am Yahuwah their Elohim. Right? Exodus 25 verse 8. It says, and they shall make me a set apart place, and I shall do what? Dwell in their midst. Sorry about the size, but yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be a couple of them slides in here where it's gonna be small, but bear with me. So where was this dwelling? Like we said, we're gonna keep on building on it, right? Exodus chapter 12, verse 33. It says, and the Egyptians were strong on the people to hasten to send them away out of the land. For they said, we are all dying. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their garments on their shoulders. And the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Mitzrites or the Egyptians objects of silver and objects of gold and garments. And Yahuwah gave the people favor in the eyes of the Egyptians or the Mitzrites, so that they gave them what they asked, and they plundered the Mitzrites. And the children of Israel set out from Ramses to where? Sukkot. So literally the first stop when they went into the wilderness is a place called Sukkot that just so happens to be what this whole feast day is about. This booth, this tabernacle, is supposed to be this place where I'm going to dwell in your midst. So from the jump, this has been what he's been trying to show us. I'm bringing you out here so that we're going to Sukkot together.
Hallelujah.
It says about 600,000 men on foot, besides the little ones, and the mixed multitude went up with them too. Also flocks and herds, very much livestock. So another lesson. Okay, all praises. Exodus 13:17. And it came to be when Pharaoh had let the people go that Elohim did not lead them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was nearer. For Elohim said, lest the people regret when they see fighting and return to Mitzrayim. So now I'm pulling you out. But the one thing that I'm afraid of, if you see this fight, you gotta realize you gotta fight for yourself here. I'm gonna be with you, but you know they might lose heart and turn back to bondage. All praises.
Yep. Resort back to what's familiar until you've been retrained.
All praises. Well, verse 18, he says, so Elohim led the people around by way of the wilderness of the Sea of Reeds. And the children of Israel went up in fives from the land of Mitzrayim. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he certainly made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you. Some Joseph knew. And you shall bring my bones from here with you. So while everybody else didn't know that the bondage was coming and that they was going to have to leave, like he knew this is a temporary thing, right? Like even he knew that, the one who brought them in. All praises. And they departed from Sukkot and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And Yahuwah went before them by day in a column of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a column of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. The column of cloud did not cease by day, nor the column of fire by night before the people. So where the Father at? He right there with them, right here in their midst. So like I said, notice that the very first place where Elohim led Israel to camp just so happened to be a place called Sukkot. This was their first stopping point in the wilderness. We see that the wilderness was a place where Elohim himself set his tabernacle amongst men. He led them day and night through the wilderness and took care of their every need while under his supervision. So just some stuff to ponder, right? What can we learn about how Israel moved in the wilderness that can help us today when we go through Sukkot? Because this is what he's telling us. Go back. Remember this wilderness. Remember the wilderness and how I brought you out of Egypt and I put you in the wilderness, and it was all for a reason. So what we supposed to be remembering during this time? It's some do's and it's some don'ts. I can tell you that. When you look at the wilderness, it's like, what was he trying to do for us? What did we do?
Yeah, what were the instructions that we were given so that we could even be in his midst?
All praises.
There's another place that says he dwells in the midst of those instructions.
All praises.
And in another place, it says that he is those instructions.
I would just bringing it to modern, just what can we remember about that time that we can apply now when we're doing Sukkot? We ain't got to know it all. We ain't got to have it all. We have to the only thing we have to have in completion or imperfectness is submission unto the Most High. Because we're kind of we're in our wilderness right now. We're not in our land. We are in wilderness right now, being scattered. It is for us to fully submit unto him, because when we do, we can, and when we look back, there's certain things that I say that I could just think of songs. When I look back over my life, I can see how your love is guiding me. See, but when we look back over our lives, we can see if we choose to see it. He ain't letting our shoes wear out without being able to do something about it. He ain't letting our clothes wear out without us being able to do something about it. He make a way out of nowhere. Like, I had to get cliche and all of that, but literally, he makes a way and he does for us. And if we decide to go back, it's our perspective. If we go back and change our perspective and look at it and realize, you know what, Father, you have been keeping me all this long. I ain't had everything that I wanted. Maybe everything that I wanted wasn't good for me. Maybe you know better than I do. In some kind of way, I'm pretty sure I could see in my life that I've had manna. And I know for our household, we have legitimately had manna. What is this? What? Like we have legit. Where did this come from? From on high. From on high, completely supplied over in abundance by the Father, so much so that we was able to share and make sure other folks is taken care of, at least for a time, So that's what I think of. What can we learn from them back then? They had no choice but to be in full submission. They had no choice but to be in full submission. Even though they wanted to take it out on Moses, every time he turned around, they looking to stone him. They still had no choice but to be in full submission. The one thing I see also, though, that was missing, just like the other Moray was bringing out and said, what is it you just said? He dwells in the word. He dwells in the midst of his instructions, and he is his instructions. He also said he dwells in the praises of his people. There wasn't a whole lot of that going on. That's one thing that I could see that we can kind of take away as well. What do's and don'ts, what didn't. There wasn't a whole lot of praises going on. Maybe we could take the page out of that book and learn. Maybe we got to do a little more praising, a little more glorifying.
Sukkot Tabernacles. There's a level of humility that has to be established and then maintained. His word sets the tone for that. It creates the environment for that submission, for that humility. As we've experienced as a people, sometimes that humility is forced upon you until you wake up to the realization that I should have been choosing this in the first place. In that place, there's room for him to work, to operate on us, so that he can dwell with us and we can be acceptable in his presence. Striving to appreciate what he's doing so that we become pleasing in his sight and not just acceptable. It's from glory to glory, from base level to the pinnacle, to the highest point. But yeah, definitely want to look at that level of humility to be established as our baseline where we can't go under, and maintain and build from that.
That question makes me think about, but to me, I think about not murmuring or complaining. Because right when they came out of Egypt, what did they do? They murmured. You can look at Shemot chapter 16. Um, okay, sorry. So, yeah, so what I think about is, because in the wilderness, I think about how, our people, Yahuwah's people murmured, complained. It's like they came out of the Egypt out of bondage, happy, praising, uplifting his name. And then when things got hard, or when they saw, okay, no, my life is completely has changed. Things are different, and plus, I'm kind of hungry and thirsty. Like it was and then I think, of course, they were probably still learning, at first. Okay, how will this work? How will the Father provide for me? But then it got to a point to where it was just flat out rebellious. Like, oh well, I'm just going to keep complaining and murmuring. And so for me, I look at it as, okay, during Sukkot and during the feast days, don't murmur, don't complain, be thankful, be content with what I have, wherever I am. Be thankful, be in a thankful mindset.
All praises. All praises. So we kind of already answered that. This next part. Well, what is it that the Father is trying to remind us of in this season, and why is it important as the last feast day of the year? That's kind of what we've been talking about, right? Like, it's significant, and we're gonna see even as we go on more. Like each one of these feast days is centered in a certain time of the year around a certain harvest, because they have some nuance to each one of them, right? Like we know with Pesach, okay, we know a big event happened prophetically about a Passover lamb on this day. And we know like Feast of Weeks, oh, something happened. So this is the same thing going all the way through. All praises. So the divisions of Israel, right? Now notice they said that I can't take them through the Philistines, because if they have to fight, they ain't about it, right? Yeah, almost. If you're scared, go to church. But it's like, oh. But like, they was fearful coming out, right? Mm-hmm. But it's something that he was trying to do in them. And we're going to see, right? So Exodus 12:51 says, and it came to be on the self same day that Yahuwah brought the children of Israel out of the land of Mizraim according to their divisions. That word for divisions is Sabaoth. We know that he is called what? Yahuwah Sabaoth. Which means he's Yahuwah of the armies. Mm-hmm. Right? Psalm 24 tell you all about it, right? Who is this man of war, right? All praises. One of the things to keep in mind is that Israel moved as an army in the wilderness. They were set up as a military encampment while they journeyed. Notice that we saw a moment ago that they had to enter into the wilderness because otherwise they would have feared the Philistines and turned back. He took them through the wilderness first in order to teach them how they would battle. Remember, the whole promised land conquest is one of battle, where they would have to defeat mighty nations greater than them, right? So it's imperative that you learn what your weapons of your warfare are, right? Because if you can't deal with these footmen and with these nations that's out here in the wilderness, how you gonna deal with them ones that's in the land? Because it's certain things when you notice when they start getting closer and closer to the land, it's like, nah, the Amorites, they over there, and they all king of Bashan, and you know that. And then when they went to the land, which we're gonna see a little bit later on, and we saw the sons of Anak there. Who can stand against them? And the offspring of the Nephilim, and all of these things, like you're gonna notice there's some stuff in this land that, carnally speaking, this ragtag army that we were slaves a minute ago. Yep. Like, carnally speaking, we ain't ready for it. but the Father is showing you through his works and this great, mighty thing that he did. No, you can do it. I got you. None of these nations over here are stronger than Egypt. So you got this. It's all right.
They was all afraid after what they heard about in Egypt.
That part. I already set the standard for you. Even all these years later, we're talking about many years later, right? The first generation gone, and now we're dealing with the second generation. And then when they go into Jericho, you see Rahab still like, oh no, we know y'all been out there for all this time, these 40 years in the wilderness, y'all been out there. And 40 years later, we just as shook. Like, and it's clear that y'all just been circling out there. Like, really think about that. That's how great of a thing was done on that day. That 40 years later, even after circling around, that the nation still didn't doubt what we did. That's deep.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Something about them instructions. Kind of hard to have confidence in what he say you'll do for him if you know you ain't been doing what he's asking you to do for him. It's hard to have confidence in what he said he'll do for you if you know you haven't been doing what he's asked of you.
I just personally want to sit with that for a minute because that was heavy. That is very heavy. We disregarded our LOI so much that a whole generation later, the other nations was still shook. They still knew and understood. They still comprehended and they feared. But here go arrogant Israel. Oh, you just brought us out here to kill us. You don't love us. You don't want you. Gimme. He did all of that, and we still doubted him. And we still took him for granted. And we still acted like we ain't have nan bit of sense. And still to this day act the same. Yeah. I just wanted to sit with that for a minute.
All praises. This is a reason why he keeps on saying during these feast days, remember this thing. Remember this thing. Go back and remember this. Revisit this. Remember this. Otherwise, if you forget, then you're going to get it messed up in your head. I did this. This is more by my hand, my strength, my power. We got this wealth. And we live in cushy. And then you self-destruction. Right.
And if I can, one more time, there's in the chat. If you know you're not doing right, how can you have confidence in his promises? Exactly right. Exactly right.
All praises. All praises. So yeah, Deuteronomy 7:1 says, when Yahuwah your Elohim brings you into the land which you go to possess, he shall also clear away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, 7 nations, what? Greater and mightier than you. And when Yahuwah your Elohim gives them over to you, you shall strike them and put them under the ban completely. Make no covenant with them and show them no favor. And do not intermarry with them. You do not give your daughter to his son, and you do not take his daughter for your son, for he turns your sons away from following me to serve other mighty ones. Then the displeasure of Yahuwah shall burn against you and promptly destroy you. But this is what you do to them. Break down their slaughter places, smash their pillars, cut down their asherim, and burn their carved images with fire. For you are set apart people to Yahuwah your Elohim. Yahuwah your Elohim has chosen you to be a people for himself, a treasured possession above all the peoples on the face of the earth. So Now we know that there was a certain set of rules that were applicable for the military camp when they would go out for battle. And the reason being was that Elohim was in their midst. Right? So if Elohim is in your midst, right? He's physically touched down. He's in your midst. It's some do's and it's some don'ts, right? All praises. So Deuteronomy 20 verse 1, he says, when you go out to battle against your enemies and shall see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them, for Yahuwah your Elohim, who brought you up from the land of Mizraim. Man, how many times are we going to be reminded of this? Is with you. It shall be when you draw near to the battle that the priest shall come and speak to the people and shall say to them, hear, O Yisrael, you are drawing near today to draw to battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not fear or tremble or be afraid before them. For Yahuwah your Elohim is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So notice here that the priests and the Levites are set as leaders over the people when they go out to battle. We will see why next. Before we do, however, let's look at something that seems random for now, but we will come back to it later. Deuteronomy 20 verse 19, later on in this chapter, is just some various laws about warfare. When you besiege a city for a long time by fighting against it to take it, you do not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. If you do eat of them, do not cut them down. For is the tree of the field a man to be besieged by you? Only the trees which you know are not trees for food do you destroy and cut down. Now, that's ironic because there was a tree that was in the garden that was not told for food, that we looked at as told for food. So hopefully that mistake isn't made again. But here, the ones that are producing fruit that is told for food, leave those alone. Even in the midst of your war in this quote unquote enemy's land, in their territory, leave it. This is a commandment for war. So only trees which you know are not trees for food do you destroy and cut down to build siege works against the city that is fighting against you until it falls. So we see even in wartime, Elohim is still concerned with preserving the fruit that the land produces. Again, we will see how this is important later because it also shows you when the armies would be likely to be in battle, right? So just a sidebar, these trees are out there bearing. You're not out there in the middle of the winter time. When nothing's on the trees, it's when they're actually bringing forth because this is just a common sense logical thing to do. It's warm out, right? Why make the battle harder and more difficult than it has to be? So that's one level of it on the physical, right? Keep in mind the words of John, however, right? John Yehuganah Mercer. Every tree that does not bear fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. So just again, we'll revisit this a little bit later on, but just keep that in mind. And then also on the right side, we'll see that Sukkot, like they dwelled in these tents. Really, I want us to visualize. I'm going to go back to the last slide, just in case anybody hasn't been paying attention to the picture that's been on the side with the camps, right? Like notice the Father is in the mist. His camp is in the mist, the pillar of fire by night, cloud by day. And then you got all of their camps, their tents, if you will, their booths, if you will, center around his, right? Again, they were in a military encampment, right?
Order.
This is no doubt about it that he arrayed them as an army, right? Here we go. We see still to the same, like to this day. The top picture is, I think, World War II. Then obviously the latter two are more modern, but still to this day, this is how the military and how the armies set up, right? When they out on a campaign and on a mission, that's what they do. They set up in tents, right? A temporary, a portable dwelling. You move from one spot to the next spot, put it down, put it back up, right? All praises. All praises. And just as we going through this, remember that this is what the Father wants us to remember. So it's not just like, oh, we was in the wilderness, but it's also like, no, what was we doing in the wilderness? What was he doing with us in the wilderness? Why were we in the wilderness? What, like all of these things, remember these things. Is this some warfare that might need to be getting battled during these feast days? But again, like I said, weapons of our warfare, not carnal, but they mighty in Yahuwah. Pulling down the strong. Okay. All right. Because we've been over that stuff many a times by now, right? Like, but just some things to keep in mind. All praises. So Numbers chapter 1, and then just pay attention to the picture on the side, because that's basically what we was looking at. This is how they were set up and how they were arranged, right? So Numbers chapter 1, starting at verse 1. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of appointment, on the first day of the second new moon or new month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Mitzrayim, saying. Now, what I will also say is it will be a Torah study for everybody to just, next time you going through the Torah, like really try to follow the chronology of when each thing is happening. When they tell you a date, they're letting you know, giving you a timestamp. Well, when is this happening? And you're going to see that, like, sometimes we take for granted, like, that the stories are in chronological order. They're not. Like, this happened in real time after events that we're going to read about in Numbers happen. So we're going to read about it later in the book, but then when you look at the timestamp, you see, oh, no, this happened before this. And there's a reason why everything be ordered the way that it is, and it's highlighting certain things at certain times. So I just say, just pay attention to these times and things like that next time that you go through it, because it's going to put together a process of, like, really, how did we move in the wilderness? Like, oh, wait a minute. So it was that quick and that soon we turned out of the way. And it was like right after this happened that we was doing this. And it's like, really, when you see the chronology of it. Oh, yeah, Torah study to do. But Numbers 1, starting at verse 1. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of appointment on the first day of the second new moon in the second year after they had come out of the land of Mitzrayim, saying, take a census of all the congregation of the children of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male head by head, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. Again, this is what they set up as an army. Number them by their divisions, you and Aaron. And a man from every tribe should be with you, each one the head of his father's house. Jumping down to verse 47. But the Levites were not registered among them by their father's tribe, because Yahuwah had spoken to Moses, saying, only the tribe of Levi you do not register, nor take a census of them among the children of Israel. Instead, appoint the Levites over the dwelling place of the witness, over all its furnishings, and over all that belongs to it. They bear the dwelling place and all its furnishings, and they attend to it and camp around the dwelling place. So now if you look over at the picture, you're going to see some camps in red. Those are the Levites, right? So just keep that in mind, right? They are supposed to camp around the dwelling place. Just keep that in mind. And when the dwelling place is to go forward, the Levites take it down in the dwelling place. And when the dwelling place is to be set up, the Levites set it up. And the stranger who comes near is put to death. Now, keep in mind, in this context, a stranger is any non-Levite. The stranger is not just talking about the foreigner of the other nations outside of the 12 tribes. No, this is all 11 other tribes. Anybody that is not of the tribe of Levi, you can't do none of this stuff, right?
In this particular context.
Absolutely. So, and the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, everyone by his own camp, everyone by his own banner, according to their divisions. But let the Levites camp around the dwelling place of witness, so that there be no wrath on the congregation of the children of Israel. So now he's telling us why I'm doing this. Again, my steadfast love endures forever. I ain't trying to put none of y'all to death. They know exactly what, and they're going to convey that to y'all. You ain't going to know. Just like he said, yeah, Moses, you can come up and down Well, the people, you already done said it. They not going to come. Nope. Go back there and tell them again. Lest I break forth. And I had to put some people to death because they not going to come correct. You will, because you know what's required of me. And I had that communication with you. But them, nah, they're going to be thinking something is all right that ain't all right. Or they just going to come presumptuously because some folk just like that. So set this up because I don't want to have to. I'm trying to do a Tob thing. And it's not my desire that any should perish. Right? There we go. And we're going to get into that because that's really the reason why we're going here. It's something that the priest is teaching the people so that they can dwell. Everybody can now dwell in the midst of the Father. So it says, and the children of Israel shall pitch their tents, everyone by his own camp, everyone by his own banner, according to their divisions. But let the Levites camp around the dwelling place of witness, so that there be no wrath on the congregation of the children of Israel. And the Levites shall guard the duty of the dwelling place of the witness. And the children of Israel did according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moses. So they did. All right. So Numbers chapter 2, verse 1. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, the children of Israel are to camp, each one by his own banner, beside the sign of his father's house. Let them camp around the tent of appointment at a distance. Right. Again, you can see all 12 tribes surrounded. Now, I mean, everybody's missed. But again, why are we remembering this wilderness? It's some things that we're supposed to be learning today about how can we be in his midst, right? So we're going to see that it's something that the priest was teaching. And then it's also something that we know that we got an ultimate high priest that's in the heavenly after the order of Melchizedek that's came to do what? To teach us and to show us a thing or two about this is how you approach the Father. Well, how do we pray? Well, this is how you do it. He gonna show us some do's and some don'ts of how to come correct, right? So just some things to think about today. Then another side, no man can come to the Father except but through me. And when we see this setup, it was all pattern. And he was showing us, hey, there's a way to approach, and I'm trying to show you this. It's a way so I can dwell in your midst, but so that I'm not breaking out, you gotta make sure you do some things the right way, right?
Ooh, and that's important. As I say, and that's important because we understand in the carnal that we don't have no problem understanding, even in the carnal in modern times. Listen, you're not just gonna walk up on your governor any kind of way. Like you're not just gonna walk up to the president.
Try
any kind of way. You know what I'm saying? You're not even gonna walk up to just a regular police officer any kind of way if you got any sense.
That part. Because
there's certain things that you have to uphold, because if you go showing yourself indecent, you can be under arrest. And so that just brings it home for me, because there's rank and file and order with the Father. He's telling us his desire. I want to dwell amongst you. I want to be your Elohah, and I want you to be my people. But I, being who I am, the Holy One of Yasharal, the definition, essence of purity and cleanness, honesty, truth, and justice, I cannot allow just anything in my midst. Like, I'm not telling you these things because I just want to break forth on you. I'm telling you these things because I don't want to break forth on you. I'm telling you these things because I don't want to have to put you to death. I want you to see the importance of it yourself and come correct. Get yourselves in order so that we can have this relationship and this functionality and do the works that I'm preparing to do in the earth.
That's a very total point. I'd like us to look at it a step further. You wouldn't go up on an administrator, a governor, or the president of your country and commit assault against him. And when our minds and our spirits are in disorder and out of check, that's literally what it is.
Mhm.
And if we are spiritually assaulting one another or any of his children
Mhm.
because we are out of line, in disorder, or
Mhm.
not in check,
Mhm.
we're assaulting him.
All
You've done it
praises.
to the least of these, you've done it unto me.
Mm-hmm.
Now keep in mind that these priests, what was their job and their duty, right? Make sure in their mouth it should be the law. It should be truth coming out and judgment and all of these things. And they can tell you, no, hold on, wait a minute. Before I offer this, did you get it right with your brother first? And did you so and so? Don't put this on this. I'm not putting nothing on this altar until you get that right with him. And did you pay that fifth part? And did you do all of that? And then you come here and you do all that. And until you get that right, you then come back, because otherwise he might turn on you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not getting my hands dirty with it. If you think I'm gonna get struck down and offer some strange fire before him for you, no, I'm not doing that. You better go get that right. Now, maybe if it was for your righteousness' sake, but not for your folly. Nah, go get that right. Right? This is what they're doing. Make sure that you treating your brother the right way before you come here to the Father. He's in your midst. Anything that ain't right
Mm-hmm.
might have some problems. Right?
Morari, upkeep of the temple,
Mhm.
bearing of the temple during travels.
Mhm.
In that temple, if there's a screw loose, if there's a nail missing,
Mhm.
replace it. If a board needs to be replaced,
Mhm.
take care of that.
Mhm.
Translation. If you see the naked, somebody's shame is hanging out.
Mhm.
Cover them. Can't force anybody to do anything, but you can present a covering
Mhm.
in the form of
Mhm.
instruction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I didn't put that in here. I was going to put that in here. How he said, like, and when you come up before me, put some drawers on
Uh-huh.
and cover up that nakedness, because I ain't trying to see it. Like, it's certain things and you don't see. Huh. And is this really just about the carnal, or is it
He's not carnal.
all praises?
It says you can't serve him in the carnal.
Hmm.
That's why we need to get in touch with those that have permission, that have been groomed up to be in his presence, so that we can learn how to come correctly.
CYOA? Oh, you got the WY.
Don't worry, we're gonna edit that out.
All praise. So Numbers 3:5. So he says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi near and set them before Aaron and the priests, and they shall serve him, and shall guard his duty and the duty of all the congregation before the tent of appointment, to do all the service of the dwelling place. Excuse me. And they shall guard all the furnishings of the tent of appointment, and the duty of the children of Israel to do the service of the dwelling place. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are the given ones, given to him from among the children of Israel, and appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. And the stranger, now this priesthood, guard this thing. It's important that you do. Now, remember when we was looking in Genesis, that Adam had this place that he was put in, and it's like, guard it and keep it. Like, now protect this. You got to guard this. And we see many a time and time again that we are commanded to do what? Guard these commandments. Like,
when he's in the midst of this, or he's in the midst of those, he's the source of everything. He provides all your needs. In the garden, everything was provided. Yeah. I think there's some correlation.
all praises. All praises. So, what verse did we leave off at? Verse 10? And appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. And the stranger who comes near shall be put to death. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, Now look, I myself have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the children of Israel. And the Levites shall be mine, because all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck all the firstborn in the land of Mizraim, I set apart to myself all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast. They are mine. I am Yahuwah. Now, we know that the Levites were given this elevated position because of the events that took place in Exodus 32 with the golden calf, right? But what was their primary objective before the rest of the camps, and why were they set up in this way? We already hit on it. Is it safe to say you still need a priest as a mediator between you and the Father today? Hint, Yahusha. Like, if you just gonna come any old kind of way, whew, yeah, all praises. So, coming any old kind of way, right? Leviticus chapter 10, verse 1. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his fire holder and put fire in it and put incense on it. We already talked about that incense, and we already talked about all that stuff, right? And brought strange fire before Yahuwah, and he had not commanded them, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from Yahuwah and consumed them, and they died before Yahuwah. Then Moses said to Aaron, This is what Yahuwah spoke, saying, By those who come near me, let me be set apart. And before all the people, let me be esteemed. And Aaron was silent. So now, again, we're going to keep saying that, no, there's a reason why these priests got to be this barrier in between the people and him, right? Jumping down to verse 8. And Yahuwah spoke to Aaron, saying, Do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tent of appointment, lest you die. A law forever throughout your generations. So as to make a distinction between the set apart and the profane. Priest lips should teach knowledge. And between the unclean and the clean. And to teach the children of Israel all the laws which Yahuwah has spoken to them by the hand of Moses. All praises. So literally, we will see how important this was while they were in the wilderness. Remember, the presence of Elohim was in their midst. He set his tabernacle amongst them. This meant that they had to be before him in a clean state. Those that were made unclean for any reason had to leave to a place outside the camp until they were once again declared clean by the priest, right? So we were talking about rules, regulations, all of these things that was going on in this camp because he's dwelling in their presence. And because he's dwelling in their presence, well, let me put a mediator between me and the rest of everybody else so that anybody don't just come any old kind of way. And then I have to break out against everybody, which we saw. And we know that he ain't nothing scary about the Father, that he will do it. So like he's trying to, because of his steadfast love, enduring forever. No, I want to dwell in your midst. And it's a great thing if I dwell in your midst. But just know it's certain things you're going to have to do and that you not going to do in my midst if we're going to make this thing work out. And this is all, again, he's saying, remember this wilderness now. Remember how you dwelled in the wilderness and how I was dwelling with you. Remember all of that stuff. Keep remembering every one of these feast days. Keep remembering that. Deuteronomy 23 verse 9, he says, when the camp goes out against your enemies, then you shall guard yourself from every evil matter. So it's something about evil matters in the Father's presence that ain't gonna mesh well, right?
One against the other.
When there is any man among you who is not clean because of an emission in the night, then he shall go outside the camp. Let him not come into the midst of the camp. And it shall be at the approach of evening that he bathes with water, and when the sun sets, let him come into the midst of the camp, and you shall have a place outside the camp where you shall go out, and you shall have a sharp implement like a shovel among your equipment when you sit down outside, when you use restroom, you shall dig with it and turn and cover your excrement. For Yahuwah your Elohim does what? Walks in the midst of your camp. Right? To deliver you and give your enemies over to you. Therefore, your camp shall be set apart, so that he does not see unclean matter among you and shall turn away from you. So it's something about if there is an unclean matter that's among you, that it can cause the Father to turn away from you, right? So again, all things for us to just be cognizant of and to be remembering. Now, obviously, like I said, these are rules for them when they was in the camp, but we can't, there is much for us to glean from it today, especially if you spiritually warring with something. Might not hurt you to take up some of these wartime rules.
And to note that it's set up like a military camp. And not be forgetful that the enemies in the land are greater than what we could do on our own. So we can't afford to have him turn away and not be our help, not be our deliverer. Not then and not now. There's still giants in the land. There's cancer, there's kidney disease, there's fornication, you name it. There's all these things that are in your own strength you can't overcome. We can't afford to have him turn away and not deliver us.
That part.
So we need to figure out what these uncleannesses are and do our best to not allow them in the camp. Not through ourselves. If everybody can keep themselves in check and receive the critiquing and criticism necessary to go to the next level, then we can do this. But if we get distracted with looking outside ourselves and trying to correct the next one, instead of showing a way, presenting a solution, but actually trying to dictate what somebody else is doing, then we're going to be in trouble because it's not set up that way. As a unit, we got to overcome individually. And then as a whole, we will overcome.
That's a whole bar. Absolutely. All praises. So now last week we talked about having clean hands and a clean heart. So this is just something to keep in mind when we consider these days. What were some of the things that the people did in the wilderness as they dwelled in tents with Yahuwah in their midst? Can we see how these appointed times, i.e. Sukkot, are set up to show us how we can dwell with Elohim in our midst, which is in essence what Elohim promised to Abraham when he made his covenant with him. Like, we don't see how, like, this whole thing is set up to show us, okay, if nothing else, these times out of the year, come back. I'm trying to touch down and give you this quote unquote visitation. I'm at least trying to, yeah, you might not be in your land, but I meet you where you're at. But there's a certain way that I'm trying to let you know in preparation for a greater thing, because these are all shadows of greater things to come. Is a greater thing that's coming. That, yeah.
And the Father's so multifaceted. It behooves us to really pay attention to what he says and then realize a lot of times he means it on multiple levels. Here in the camp, the priests are set up in his midst as a buffer, giving him a man in the land to deal with that he destroyed not. Somebody in the land through whom he can revive the land. It says in Sirach that through one, a city can be redeemed. Through one with understanding. Here in the east direction, he's got priests set up. Those priests have a little bit more understanding than those beyond that point, outside that point, of what it means to be acceptable in his sight. Tying that into in the dead and how Mashiach shall rise first. Those who have received the correction a little bit earlier have died to themselves, been allowed in his presence, likely being set up as priests. The trade-off, their life is no longer their own. They hear from the Father, the people, intercede for the people diligently. So if you haven't got to that point, look for somebody who the Father is guiding you to, who has learned what it means to die to self. They may not be walking on water, but when they're in that groove where the Father wants them to be, they understand the cost and can convey it to you. Just something for us to be paying attention to.
Absolutely. All praises. All praises. All praises. So, the wilderness. The book of Numbers is a great place to get insight on what our fathers did in the wilderness. The Hebrew title for the book is Bamidbar, which means in the wilderness. Here we are given account of the crookedness of our ways and the greatness of the Father's ways, right? So 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1, it goes into it a little bit. It says, "For I do not wish you to be ignorant, brothers, that all our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and all were immersed into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed, and the rock was Mashiach. However, with most of them, Elohim was not well pleased, for they were laid low in the wilderness. But these became examples for us, so that we should not we shall not lust after evil, as those indeed lusted."
So they were overthrown, were laid low by certain desires. And we can see that in the instructions during a military campaign. Sometimes those desires are lawful, but untimely. Because again, if it's not our own strength that overthrows our enemies, it's not our own strength that deliver us, that we're counting on that communion with the Father and his heavenly host. So we must be clean according to his standard.
All praises. All praises. All praises. Numbers 11, starting at verse 1. "And it came to be, when the people were as complainers, it was evil in the ears of Yahuwah, and Yahuwah heard it, and his displeasure burned. And the fire of Yahuwah burned among them and consumed those in the outskirts of the camp, those that don't bring forth told fruit."
Harvest time. Appointed time. A season spoken of and anticipated when he's set to show up. There should be fruit here. There were seeds planted, nurturers were provided, water was provided. In this season, sun doesn't shine, should be fruit produced. And not poisonous wild grapes, but toad fruit. Expect him to be looking for produce from what he is sown at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. All praises. Verse 2, it says, "And the people cried out to Moses, and Moses prayed to Yahuwah, and the fire died down. Then he called the name of the place Taberah, because the fire of Yahuwah had burned among them. And the mixed multitude who were in their midst lusted greatly. So the children of Israel also wept again and said, Who has given us meat to eat? We remember the fish which we ate without cost in Mizraim, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our being is dried up. There is not to look at but this manna." Now, we're going to hear about this manna. With a told by it don't sound half bad. Now, the manna was like coriander seed. It is appearance like the appearance of bdellium. Yeah, something that looked like this. This is It's Tob as it can get. When you really look at what he giving them, he not just giving them some scraps like this. No, this is bon appetit. The people went abroad and gathered it, ground it on millstones or beat it in the mortar and cooked it in a pot and made cakes of it. And its taste was as the taste of cakes baked with oil. And when the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna fell on it. And Moses heard the people weeping throughout their clans, each man at the door of his tent. Something about what we supposed to be remembering, right? Well, you remember you dwelled in tents in the wilderness, and I was in the tent among you in the wilderness, and there's just some things for us to think back on. And the displeasure of Yahuwah burned exceedingly, and in the eyes of Moses it was evil. So Moses said to Yahuwah, why have you done evil to your servant? And why have I not found favor in your eyes to put the burden of all these people on me? Something about that Ruach is contagious. Yeah. So in the wilderness, we did all sorts of things that were displeasing in the Father's sight, causing him to break out against us. Even so, although he chastised us, he did not utterly do away with us as we deserve for breaking our covenant with him. Now, just to touch on that, like have anybody ever been around somebody complaining? And next thing you know, it opens up the door for you to start complaining. And next thing you know, you the echo chamber for what they saying. Like, have you ever been in like a fast food place and been waiting? And then one person, I DoorDash. So like, I see this all the time when it ain't coming fast enough and folks gonna feel some type of way. And then if you're not careful and you're not guarding your gates, then next thing you know, then now you agitated. Yeah, that's right. Right? Like, you see how this thing can...
But how easy it is for us to complain and murmur, looking at our situations, because testing and trials, they always come. Like you mentioned beforehand, this is how Abihu sees what's in our heart. So when situations come, and let's say, your finances, or, your life, or, your jobs, or the people you work with, or your family members, whatever the case may be something that you've had, you no longer have. It's easy to get into that, to complain and murmur, and it's just coming out. And if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention to, like you were mentioning, just staying in that positive mindset, I think it's all about your perception, what you perceive and how you think about it. Because if you're not careful, you're going to complain and murmur, and then we're no better than our ancestors. I mean, and if you want Yahuwah to be in our midst, which we pray for, then we have to make sure that's one of the things we don't do. But it can be hard if you're not in the right mindset. Stay positive, trust in our Yahuwah, rely on him, depend on him, and no matter what, like I was mentioning earlier, be thankful. But again, if you're not in the right mindset, you can miss it.
All praises.
All praises.
Yeah, that's extremely important, and it brought something to mind. I believe quite often we as people aren't prepared for what it means for Yahuwah to be in our midst. Absolutely. Being so used to operating carnally, living in a physical realm, perceiving things that have physical representation, a lot of times being oblivious to things that don't have physical interpretation at the time. For the creator of all things, the source of light, the all-examining eye, the world tries to act like they see it all, but even with all the cameras and bugs, still don't see it all like he sees it all. When he's in your midst, what is concealed becomes revealed. Whatever is attached to you comes to the surface. The essence of who you are will be revealed to you through situations.
Ooh, boy, tell
That's
me
what
about it.
Deuteronomy 8 was doing for us.
Mhm.
All those years, he was giving us the opportunity to see what was in us and to see it as he sees it and agree with him.
Mhm.
But if we're not willing to die to self, the veil remains and we still won't see it.
Mhm.
But if we are willing to be like, you know what, you're right, I did that and I deserve
Mhm.
death. And whatever you choose to do is what it's going to be.
Mhm.
Then we get a little bit closer to agreeing with him
Mhm.
and he can correct us and clean us up.
Mhm.
But if we unwilling to die to self, we'll never see it. And we won't inherit the kingdom. We might get to the door of it just to not get in. But who wants that?
And then that's the right mindset. Whatever I am going through, I deserve. Yeah, I'll be who is
There's something
told.
off. It's gotta be my fault.
Yes, I whatever it is. Okay, Father, this is my portion. Whatever it is, and I think staying in that mindset is really the best. Because then you're not in danger of sinning and blaspheming against Yahuwah because you're angry or mad due to whatever situations you're going through. It's Father, help us, please, because that's deep.
Ever going cycle that we're reading about. All praises. Numbers 12. Miriam and Aaron's words against Moses caused Miriam to become leprous. Notice that leprosy was uncleanness. Therefore, she was kicked out of the camp. You're going to keep seeing how it's certain. But notice the parallel that it was something that was within that made her unclean, right? So, yeah, like this uncleanness is not always like those physical things. You got to abide by that. Like that's what it was. But they were also like shadows of greater things. Like they were showing us a pattern and a borderline, an outlined instruction. And this also works in the spiritual. Like keep in mind, like this nakedness, cover that up physically, but then also like spiritually. Don't be like Adam and Eve out here. Like don't do that. Like so many levels of what he was really trying to show us in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Numbers 13 and 14. The 12 spies were sent out and spoke negative words against the land that Yahuwah promised. Now we know that out of the abundance of the heart, the what? Right? So that's really what he's looking at. Saying, oh, well, come through this wilderness. You'll get hungry a little bit. You'll get irritable a little bit. It's hot out here. Now let's see. What's in your heart? Is it your Torah, my Torah? Or is it something else in there? We'll see. Right? So the people began to melt with fear, showing they had no faith in Yahuwah and his covenant. The people began to speak negative words against the Father, saying he was trying to kill them in the wilderness and that it would have been better for them to have remained in Egypt, although there they were under bondage. The people then project this anger towards Aaron and Moses, thinking to kill them. Notice that this was done right in the face of the dwelling of the Most High. They did this right before his face. Notice here hatred towards their brothers. So in both cases, you seeing how this thing is manifesting and why, like during these feast days, there are certain things that he is trying to get us to get right and really trying to get us. That's what atonement was all about, right? Like really, like no, like let's get this thing right. Let's get this right. Let's get this right. So you can be before me. You need to be right with them so you can come before me. This has always been Torah, like always. Before he gets his offering, you got to make sure that you did whatever you did to make that wrong, you made it right. You shall love your brother as yourself. I am Yahuwah your Elohim.
And if we can't love our brother, then we can't love him. So if we're showing hatred toward our brother, who we showing hatred toward?
It just shows you the difficulty if you make it difficult to put your flesh under subjection. Because now we're talking about filling your belly. They were so hungry and thirsty that they have preferred to go back to the bondage of Egypt, slavery, taskmasters. Literally, like now you're thinking fleshly. You know, your flesh is not under subjection. You're not thinking correctly. You're hungry, so it's better for me to just I prefer to get my belly full than for me to be in this wilderness with Abiyahuah, the one who just rescued me from slavery. Like it's like wow, think about it the same today. Like a fasting is about to kill us. Oh my Father, I ain't gonna be able to do this no more. I'm like, but seriously though, like it's about bringing your flesh under subjection and just letting the rock, set apart spirit rule within you. You know what I mean? Like that's deep. They cared about themselves and they're filling their bellies more than being with the Most High.
Yeah, and the wild part is if you can just get over that hump, your body will kick into another gear because you built like that.
Mm-hmm.
Feast and famine, feast and famine. It ain't no scheduled meals every day. That's unnatural, honestly. Animals don't even eat like that. And we'll feed our pets 2 or 3 times a day because that's how we eat. Ketosis would kick in if you had the willingness to do His will. The willingness, you know what? If we're gonna die to serve you, then it's worth it. Proverbs 28:4. Proverbs 28:4. They that forsake the law praise the wicked, but such as keep the law contend with them. So in forsaking the law, forsaking Him, yeah, we're gonna praise the wicked. I'd rather go back and really where your woman can get taken from you in front of you, and then you go right back to work getting beat by that slave taskmaster. You rather that to fill your belly when you want to fill your belly.
And what's interesting is that, and I think about the law that says, for us, don't hate Esau because that's your brother. But literally, not only that, at that moment that we're talking about, when they were talking about, oh, I remember the fish, I remember the leeks, I remember the melons, I remember the we became Esau. Literally, in our heart, we became Esau at that point. We were willing to sell our birthright. The Most High, like you said, He was right there in our midst, and our ancestors was doing it in His face. Every time we offended Him, we did it right in His face. We spit right in His face. We slap Him right in His face. Come on. And we did it right in His face, right there while He was yet in the midst of us. We became Esau at that point. Literally ain't no difference between, they was twins, as we talked about in a previous lesson. They were twins. I don't care who want to say how they want to say it. They were literally twins. It talks about one being hairy. Adam in the garden was red also, or that's his name. He was of the ground. As you showed in the previous lesson, it's more of a brownish color with the red Georgia red clay, baby. Georgia red clay. Come on. The potter's house. Come on. We literally at that point as a nation became in agreement with Esau, became Esau in that point. We was willing to sell the Most High at that point for some garlic, for some melons, for some cucumber, and for a piece of fish. And literally, like you were saying, like now we so accustomed to, and somebody put in the chat, Food is an issue even unto this day. That's why they use it to harm us.
Absolutely.
That's exactly why they use it to harm us. Because, like you were pointing out, if we looked at the natural way things would go, it's a period of feast, it's a period of famine. Period of feast is why it's called break fast, because you would literally be fasting for a period of time throughout the day, and it wouldn't be a problem to you because you will work off of the stores that your body have stored up. Listen, it's I know I ain't. The Father made it. Look, but you'll be working off of what you have stored up previously, and then you will feast for another time to store up more. Feast and famine. Feast and famine. We look at people at things in the wild. Same thing. Feast and famine. Feast and famine. And not only that, different unconventional places that they go and would get food. Different sources of food. Different things that they would eat. You eat this kind of fruit at this time. You eat this kind of fruit at that time. Seasonal eating. We have become we have gotten laid back on our leaves and have gotten so comfortable. And it's just so.
That's the word, comfort.
Comfort.
Will I take a second to inherit eternal things?
You know, to where now
Yes.
Father help us.
I heard the other day where someone was breaking it down, and he says, like, well, everybody has a vice. It just depends on what they feel.
Yep.
Said a person that feels pain is addicted to comfort. They desire comfort. So anything that they feel that provides that, that's what they will run to. A person that has an issue with boredom will seek novelty. Like, and I'm like, no, wow, no, this is like really like on a basic, bare psychological level. Like, these are the things that get used against us. So, like, if I can induce a state of pain and put a mass of people under a state of pain, then what you think they're going to run to? Like, it's a systematic thing. So it's like really, really, really important that, you know, like we really get a bearing and a grip on it, because like this is a weapon that is being used against us. We using it against ourselves by agreeing with it. And then, you know, there's nothing wrong with comfort when it's supposed to be, when it's time to be comfortable. But it ain't always that time. Sometimes it's time to endure. Sometimes it's time to press through. Sometimes it's time to be uncomfortable so that you can grow. Like, it's all times and cycles and seasons. But this environment had kind of put us in, it's always supposed to be that time, right?
La La Land.
Yeah. All praises.
It's deep that can be a judgment against you. Make fat the heart of his people. You know, he's like, nah, let them be comfortable. And what that's really saying is, I just get at them at the judgment. You know what I mean? Don't worry about correcting them. I'll deal with them later, since clearly they ain't trying to get close to me. So for him to be in our midst, expect some discomfort, but be looking for the true you so that you can get the correction needed while there's time.
100% facts. Like, there was a reason why when the commandments were being spoken by the mouth of Elohim, that they was fearing and they was trembling, and these thunders and these lightnings, and we terrified right now. Like, no, there's a reason why it's supposed to be like that. Like, all praises. All praises.
Just like just like in the comments was saying, like Yahuwah's not playing just before they swallowed that quail though. And then what happened? Like, exactly. It's like, oh, okay, you want it that bad? And so exactly.
All praises. So, Numbers 13 and 14. The 12 spies were sent out and spoke negative words against the land that Yahuwah promised. The people began to melt with fear, showing they had no faith in Yahuwah and his covenant. The people began to speak negative words against the father, saying he was trying to kill them in the wilderness, and that, it would have been better for them to have remained in Egypt, although they were under bondage. They were under bondage. The people then project this anger towards Moses and Aaron, thinking to kill them. Notice that this was done right in the face of the dwelling of the Most High, right? So Numbers 14, verse 8. If Yahuwah has delighted in us, then he shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. This is when the report is coming out, and you got Caleb and you got Joshua trying to reason with the people, and Moses and Aaron trying to reason with the people, but they don't want to hear it, right? And notice here what it says. It says, only do not rebel against Yahuwah, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense has turned away from them, and Yahuwah is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of Yahuwah appeared in the tent of appointment before all the children of Israel. I'm right here. Did y'all forget I'm right here? And Yahuwah said to Moses, how long shall I be scorned by these people? And how long shall I not be trusted by them? And with all the signs which I have done in their midst, let me strike them with pestilence and disinherit them, and make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. So now notice they was afraid of these nations that was greater and mightier than them. But you actually are the greater and mightier nation with me, with you. Well, how about since they don't believe that they can take them, let me just wipe them out and show them that I can do it better with you. Then I'll make a greater and mightier nation.
That's deep.
So also keep in mind what time of year it was. Wasn't it during the grape harvest, the pomegranates, the figs? What time of year is this? Which feast do these harvests correspond with? Remember what we saw earlier. So Numbers 13, when they went to spy out the land, he's trying to bring them into the land during a certain season to show you, finally, we about to dwell together, and I'm about to set my tabernacle up with you. And now we set. Once we in the land, all you got to do is maintain. We set. Numbers 13:17. And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up here into the south and go up to the mountains and see what the land is like, and the people who dwell in it, whether strong or weak, whether few or many, and whether the land they dwell in is good or evil, whether the cities they inhabit are in camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are forests there or not. And you shall be strong and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now, the time was the season of the first fruits of grapes. Come
on.
So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin, and as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron, and Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, were there. Now Hebron had been built 7 years before Soan in Mitzrayim. And they came to the Wadi Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with one cluster of grapes. And they went and they bore it between two of them on a pole. Also the pomegranates and the figs. That place was called the Wadi Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down from there. So notice all of this is happening right here in this season. It's lessons to be learned. What is the Father trying to do? Now we saw before in the weeks prior, this season he's trying to build the temple. He's trying to rebuild the temple. He's trying to dwell in our midst, and this season symbolizes that. This is why he's telling us, no, go back and remember the wilderness. Go back. This is why we rehearsing all of these things, because it's all of this is I'm trying to show you what I'm trying to do in you.
What's one of the things that people enjoy that's made from grapes?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, when was the water turned into that?
All
What was
praises.
going on?
Mhm.
So
A good old
what else
wedding
could this season symbolize?
All praises.
Marriage ceremony,
Mhm.
dwelling. Come on.
Mm-hmm. All right now. Like, all praises. So could it be that Elohim was trying to take them into the promised land during this season because of his plans to tabernacle with them? Remember, Sukkoth is the harvest of this season where they were going into the land to spy it out. Again, keep in mind the saying of John: all trees that don't bring forth fruit are cut down and cast into the fire. It's one of them tough ones to see. The wilderness. All right, so Numbers 14, verse 26. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, how long shall this evil congregation have this grumbling against me? I have heard the grumblings which the children of Israel are grumbling against me. Say to them, as I live, declares Yahuwah, as you have spoken in my hearing, so I do to you. The carcasses of you who have grumbled against me are going to fall in this wilderness. All of you who were registered according to your entire number from 20 years old and above. Now, why is that important? Keep in mind that this is referencing the census of the army that was done in Numbers chapter 1. The people that were in fear had the responsibility to fight. So when this negative report is coming back, there's a reason why it was all of those that were under that specific age that perished. Is because those were the ones that were accounted in Numbers chapter 1. All of y'all who are 20 years and upward, you are accounted. These are the ones that are part of this camp or this army of Israel. Yep, but we got to understand this is an army in a camp of Israel. So this is the most egregious thing that can be done. Remember, again, we saw earlier when we looked at those wartime rules. The priest got to go out and say, hey, don't let your heart melt. Don't nobody be afraid. The Father is with us. And if you're scared, don't come out here with us. Remove yourself from the camp.
Yeah.
Yes.
Saying of John coupled with that, every tree that don't produce.
No, but it's interesting because, like you were saying, putting that together, every tree that does not bear fruit gets cut down. What they do in the wilderness got cut down. Why? Because they were not bearing the fruit that the Father had instructed them to bear. They were not in full submission to the Father. He was looking for a product, for that produce. He was looking for that harvest. Listen, how long am I going to have to suffer, y'all? Because I done already showed you all of this. I done already dung the tree. I done already did all of this for y'all. I done showed you great signs, great wonders. I done, blah, blah, blah. Everybody else around you is remembering Egypt. How long I'm going to have to deal with this? Because by now, you should have confidence in me. And matter of fact, you stood there at the mountain. You saw me. No other nation. He said he did that. He said it flat out. No other nation can say that they have seen Yahuwah speaking with them. Y'all can. So right now, you have everything that you need in order to produce this kind of fruit, which is the confidence in me that I said that I'm going to do exactly what I said that I'm going to do. No, you getting cut down. No. Man.
Most importantly, they gave their word. The covenant was established.
Yep.
All that you said, I will do. And so there's a covenant here. So you have to keep your end of the covenant. Yahuwah was loyal and faithful. We, Israel, the people, were not.
That part.
All praises. So Well, we were just talking about Numbers 1:1, and Yahuwah spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of appointment on the first day of the second new moon or month in the second year after they had come out of the land of Mizraim, saying, take a census of all the congregation of Israel by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the numbers of names, every male, head by head, from 20 years old and above, everyone going out to the army in Israel. Number them by their divisions, you and Aaron. So again, keep in mind that it is possible that this harvest of fruits could parallel with the harvest of fruit that the Father was looking forward to get from his people, just like our coach just said. So Isaiah 5:1, as I brought out earlier, please let me sing to the one I love, a song for my loved one regarding his vineyard. My loved one has a vineyard on a fertile hill, and he dug it up and cleared it of stones and planted it with the choicest vine and built a watchtower in its midst and also made a winepress in it. And he waited for the yielding of grapes, but it yielded rotten ones. And now, O inhabitant of Jerusalem and man of Yehuda, please judge between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why, when I waited for the yielding of grapes, did it yield rotten ones? And now, please let me inform you of what I am doing to my vineyard. Please take away its hedge, and it shall be burned, to break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. And I lay it waste, and it is not pruned or dug, and thorn bushes and weeds shall come up. And I command the clouds not to rain on it. For the vineyard of Yahuwah of hosts is the house of Yisrael, and the man of Yehuda is his pleasant plant. He looked for right ruling. That was the fruit. But see, oppression. That was the fruit that was produced. For righteousness, that's the fruit. But see, weeping, that was the fruit that was produced.
Come on.
All praises. You see it. All praises. All praises. Numbers 15. All praises. The numbers. Numbers 15. The man sins presumptuously by gathering wood on Shabbat. Number 16. Korah's rebellion against the order Elohim established. Notice that they were Levites and Reubenites. Reuben was the natural firstborn of Israel. So it makes sense why Reuben jumps in with Korah's rebellion and why Reuben is down with it, right? Because they both got something to gain here. Number 16, verse 3. And they assembled against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, enough of you, for all the congregation is set apart. We are all set apart. Yeah, but no. Yeah, but only in this way. If you remove what's setting you apart and allowing you to be set apart, then you're not set apart. I don't care how much you think you know this Torah. Like, remove Yahusha, that mediator, and you think you're just going to come any kind of way.
Come on.
Good luck.
Yahusha's not a product at Walmart. You can't just go pick them up at your leisure. That's up to the Father. There's protocol for you to have the opportunity to receive mercy, but his mercy isn't guaranteed. He said plainly, I'll have mercy on whom I will have mercy.
All praises. Why then do you lift yourselves up above the assembly of Yahuwah? And when Moses heard, he fell on his face. So instead of him lifting himself up, what is he doing? Making himself low. And spoke to Korah and all his company, saying, Tomorrow morning, Yahuwah shall make known who is his and who is set apart, and bring him near to him. And let him bring near to him the one whom he chooses. Do this, take fire holders, Korah, and all your company, and put fire in them, and put incense in them before Yahuwah tomorrow. And it shall be that the one whom Yahuwah chooses is the set apart one. Enough of you, sons of Levi. And Moses said to Korah, hear now, you sons of Levi. Is it little to you that the Elohim of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to bring you near to himself to perform the service of the dwelling place of Yahuwah and to stand before the congregation and to serve him? So wait a minute. Dwelling in his midst and you being right here next to his presence and you deal with his house, your servants in his house. Wait a minute. You're telling me that alone is not enough? There's some problems here.
Yeah. I think it even says consuming too much honey is not told for you. It's not that anything's wrong with the honey, but if we have an insatiable appetite, even in something that's lawful and or beneficial to us, it's likely signs that we got some company that we don't need to be keeping.
It got you. You ain't got it. That's how it always works. What the man say? Like, it don't start heavy. It just get heavy. Stop that. Verse 9. We only read verse 9.
It's just what you said just reminded me of. It's relatable to now. How many of us might compare gifts and talents? What Abihu has given you, he has given it to you. What he has given it to someone else, that's theirs. But all to the esteem of Yahuwah. So, how come Father didn't give me this? Or why am I this level? Or why is my gift and my talent this, but not this? Again, all of it's to the esteem of Yahuwah. And if we just remember that, then we won't have to, murmur, complain, and fight like Korah is doing. So it just reminded me of like this in our life now. Like I think a lot of us struggle with that too, trying to compare with one another when really it should just be, oh, praises to Yahuwah. I help out where I can help out, and you help out where you can help out, whatever it looks like, big or small.
Whatever is going to help this ship sail and keep the Father in all of our midst. Man, all praises. Verse 10, he says, and that he has brought you near to himself, you and all your brothers, the sons of Levi with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well. Therefore, you and all your company are set against Yahuwah. And Aaron, what is he that you grumble against him? And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab. But they said, we are not coming up. Is it little that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness, that you would also seize total rule over us? Who was they really talking to? Because who really brought them out? Whose rulership and leadership were they not submitting themselves to?
Whose order?
The
same order that brought you up out of Egypt when you couldn't even perceive it.
Also, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Would you bore out the eyes of these men? We are not coming up. And Moses became very displeased and said to Yahuwah, do not respect their offering. What you think Mashiach gonna do?
This is what's so deep. This is your mediator. You grieved him to the point to where he can't be guilty of asking Yahuwah to respect your offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. I have not taken one donkey from them, nor have I done any harm to any of them. So again, notice the pattern. They grumble against their brothers and against Yahuwah and his order. Then the people grumble against Moses and Aaron. The plague breaks out because of it. Notice those that did not bring forth fruit were cut down. Meanwhile, Aaron's staff brought forth fruit.
Come on.
All praises. So we're getting there. Not much more. Number 17, verse 8. And it came to be on the next day that Moses went into the tent of witness and saw that the rod of Aaron of the house of Levi had budded and brought forth buds and blossomed and bore ripe almonds. Right. So we read that last week. I won't belabor that, right? For the sake of time, I won't. But we see how this process works. You know, the fruit that has to be brought forth has to be the fruit based off of his planting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just some old wild seed and you're going to bring that. That's not what it is. It's no, the seed that he planted. We read in Matthew 13 and in Luke 8 that what? The seed is the word.
Mm-hmm.
So he's looking for some fruit that's going to be brought forth from that. Anything contrary to that, i.e. his fruit of this ruach, anything contrary to that is a no-go. Things for us to just keep in mind.
Come on.
Numbers chapter 20. The people grumble for lack of water in a place called Meribah. Notice what they say. Numbers 20 verse 2. And there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled against Moses and against Aaron. Notice like this is a pattern here. And the people contended with Moses and spoke, saying, if only we had died when our brothers died before Yahuwah. Why have you brought up the assembly of Yahuwah into this wilderness? Well, why didn't you die when your brothers died? Why didn't that happen? It could have, but nah. It's crazy.
Meanwhile, what is this whole process supposed to be doing again?
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be. But because of his mercy, you are allowed in his presence. Because he's trying to get you to a place to where that can be your everyday. Not this process, but the benefits that come with being in his presence.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't reaping those yet because you're unfit, but he's trying to get you there. Meanwhile, you fighting tooth and nail against the process that's going to qualify you to be chosen for eternal life.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get over the self now to get to the self later.
Mm-hmm.
Steve.
Very. Very, very. So why have you brought up the assembly of Yahuwah into this wilderness? Well, we learned why they went into the wilderness. That we and our livestock should die here? And why have you brought us up out of Mizraim? Well, we learned about that. To bring us to this evil place? Talking about the wilderness. Not a place of grain or figs, or vines or pomegranates. And there is no water to drink. Could it be that the people represented a wilderness themselves, or a barren, dry land that did not bring forth fruit? Notice that a place like this is considered evil, even by their standard. Verse 6. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of appointment, and they fell on their faces, and the esteem of Yahuwah appeared to them. And Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aaron, and you shall speak to the rock before their eyes, and it shall give its water. And you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give drink to the congregation and their livestock. And Moses took the rod before Yahuwah as he commanded him. But we know that it didn't go too well, that he even lost sight of the prize. So from here, we see Moses even become distracted from the Father and strike the rock. From here on, the accounts of the bronze. From here are the accounts of the bronze serpent, the Baal worship at Peor, and the folly with the Midianites. Not to mention all of the other grumblings that took place in the wilderness, such as the complaints over what they would eat and drink, the quail incident, the golden calf worship, and other things that took place in the wilderness. Even in the midst of this, the Father was still willing to reason with us. Exodus 34, verse 10. Specifically, like this is right after the golden calf incident. So right after the golden calf incident. It says, and he said, see, I am making a covenant before all your people. I am going to do wonders such as I have not done in all the earth, nor in any nation. This is how the Father is talking, even after that. And all the people among whom you are shall see the work of Yahuwah, for what I am doing with you is awesome. Guard what I command you today. See, I am driving out from before you the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite. Guard yourself, lest you guard your who? Guard who?
Yourself.
Guard yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land where you are going, lest it be a snare in your what? In your midst. But who is in their midst? So don't let this be a snare while I'm in your presence.
Come on.
But break down their slaughter places and smash their pillars and cut down their asherim. For you do not bow yourselves to another mighty one. For Yahuwah, whose name is jealous, is a jealous El. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they whore after their mighty ones and slaughter to their mighty ones, and one of them invites you, and you eat of his slaughtering, and you take of his daughters for your sons, and his daughters whore after their mighty ones, and make your sons whore after their mighty ones. Do not make a molded mighty one for yourselves. Guard. Now notice what he says. Like just really pay attention to how this thing is flowing. Don't make a covenant with them. I want you to uphold my covenant. And then in the midst of this, why is he saying this now? Right? Guard the festival of matzot, or unleavened bread. For 7 days you eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, in the appointed time, in the new month of Abib, or the new moon of Abib, because in the new moon or new month of Abib you came out from Mizraim. That's unleavened bread. The barley harvest. Everyone open in the womb is mine, and every male firstborn among your livestock, whether bull or a sheep, but the firstborn of a donkey, you ransom with a lamb. If you do not ransom, then you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom. That was the original plan. I want the firstborn. I want the firstlings of everything. And every male firstborn among your livestock, whether bull or sheep, but the firstborn of a donkey, you ransom with the lamb. And if you do not ransom, then you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of your sons you shall ransom, and they shall not appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you shall work, but on the seventh day you rest. In plowing time and in harvest you rest. And perform the festival of Shavuot, or the Feast of Weeks, for yourself, of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, i.e. the wheat, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. Feast of Weeks, i.e. Sukkot, booths, your grapevines, figs, pomegranates, olives, things of that nature. 3 times in a year, all your men are to appear before the Master, Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel. For I dispossess nations before you, and shall enlarge your borders, and let no one covet your land when you go up to appear before Yahuwah. your Elohim 3 times in the year. As we said earlier, we are that harvest, right? Like it wasn't just that he was having us do this because he was going to have to, he was hungry. That wasn't what it was, right? Nah, just like he said in Isaiah 5, it was a harvest he was trying to get out of his people. And I want you to do this and remember these 3 times and remember this because it's going to help you remember the covenant with me. And that's going to keep you in the land, keep this covenant going, and then I can dwell in your midst. With this all being said, can you see why the Father would want to have us rehearse going back to our time in the wilderness? Many of the same things that were done in the wilderness are done by us today. This caused them to not be able to be in the midst of the Father. His goal is that we bring forth good fruit. The wilderness is a place that is designed to see whether we will bring forth good fruit or not. Revisiting the wilderness gives us time to reflect on our ways and the ways of the Father. It is a time for us to truly observe ourselves. Are we able to stand in his presence with his tabernacle in our midst? Right? Like if this is today and he touched down right now, how many of us can stand in it? And I'm going to be the first person to tell you, I'm glad that these are rehearsals and these appointed times he's giving us cycles to get it right and to practice and to try to get this thing right. But it ain't always going to be practice. Eventually, you don't have to put the jersey on, lace them up, and get in the game. So let us turn to him now while today is still today. All praises.
It's making me think about the wilderness period. It makes me think about Matthew chapter 6, verses 31 through 34. Do not worry then, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For all these the nations seek for, and your heavenly Father knows that you need all these. But seek first the reign of Elohim and his righteousness, and all these shall be added to you. Do not then worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow shall have its own worries. Each day has enough evil of itself. I'm wondering, if Yahushua was directing that to the wilderness period about don't worry about what you're going to eat or drink. And I just thought like that was again in agreement with the Father as always, but I just thought to bring that up.
All praises. It's told me all praises. All praises. Revelation 14:6. And I saw another messenger flying in mid-heaven, holding the everlasting Basora or Tob news, to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come. And worship him who made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and the fountains of water. And another messenger followed, saying, Babel is fallen, or Babylon is fallen. It's fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. So now the Father was saying, I planted a vineyard to get this and put a wine press in it to get a certain produce. But then Babylon also is like, I got my own seeds and my own grapes, if you will, my own wine. Yeah. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand, i.e., where the Torah was supposed to be, he also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim, which is poured out undiluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur. Everything that don't produce tob fruit, cut down, hewn into the fire, before the set apart messengers and before the Lamb. And the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever. And they have no rest day or night. But he was trying to show us that what? He was our rest. He was going to give us rest. That's why we remember these Shabbats and these feast days that have Shabbats in them. And those worshiping the beast in his image, also if anyone receives the mark of his name. Here is the endurance of the set apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yahusha. And I heard a voice of the heavens saying to me, "Right, blessed are the dead who die in the master from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, in order that they rest from their labors and their works follow with them." And I looked, and I saw a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like the son of Adam, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. So what's a sickle used for? Harvesting, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. All praises. So it's a harvest that's supposed to take place, and we seeing, okay, all praises. I wonder what's about to be harvested, and if it have anything to do with that ingathering or that feast of the harvest of your ingatherings of your fruits of your grapes.
Come on.
And another messenger came out of the dwelling place, crying with a loud voice to the one sitting on the cloud, "Send your sickle and reap, because the hour has come for you to reap, because the harvest of the earth is ripe." And the one sitting on the cloud thrust his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. And another messenger came out of the dwelling place which is in the heaven, and he too held a sharp sickle. And another messenger came out from the slaughter place, having authority over the fire. And he cried with a loud voice to him having the sharp sickle, saying, "Send your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, because our grapes are ripe." And the messenger thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of Elohim. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horse's bridle, or up to the bridle of the horses, for about 1,600 stadia. Jumping down, Revelation 7:9. After this, I looked and I saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes and palm branches in their hands. Remember when we looked in Leviticus 23, when it was talking about, he said, during the feast of Sukkot, he says, you're going to come and you're going to rejoice with palm branches in your hands and all of these things. So just something to keep in mind. And crying out with a loud voice, saying, "Deliverance belongs to our Elohim who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." And all the messengers stood around the throne, and the elders and the 4 living creatures, and fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped Elohim, saying, "I mean, verily, truly, the blessing and the esteem and the wisdom and the thanksgiving and the respect and the power and the might to our Elohim forever and ever." Right? So a little bit more. We got, we right at the tail end now. And one of the elders responded, saying to me, "Who are these dressed in white robes, and where did they come from?" So like Ak was saying, I just wonder if this wedding and all of it, if it's all connected together, and if it all have something to do with one another, and they all talking about the same event, but from different perspectives. And I said to him, verse 14, "Master, you know." And he said to me, "These are those coming out of the great distress, having washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Because of this, they are before the throne of Elohim." They can be in his midst.
How can you wash something with blood and make it white?
All praises.
You must not be talking about physical things.
All praises. "And serve him day and night in his dwelling place." "And he who sits on the throne shall spread his tent or his tabernacle over them." So literally, yeah, all praises. This is what the goal was the whole time, and this is what I've been trying to do. But because your lack of cooperation with my plan,
Come on.
you ain't gonna make it.
We.
Hmm. They shall hunger no more. I.e., what was the land supposed to do? It's the land that produced all these things. Oh.
Provision.
Hmm.
Petrol.
Neither thirst anymore. So they hungered, they thirsted in the wilderness. But if you can get your garments right and you can get right, but be in his presence and get this thing right, then I'm gonna get you to the point you don't have to worry about that. That's what he was trying to do.
Go through the straight in order to enter into the broad.
Hmm.
Straight is the way.
Mhm.
It's a narrow path that leads you back into the
Mhm.
garden.
Hmm.
Take the chips off your shoulders. Don't let anything cause you to be an accuser of the brethren. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
Hmm.
Not every offering is to be respected.
Mhm.
But once you slide into the realm of wanting to be the accuser,
Mhm.
you done turned your back to the Father. And
Hmm.
as a priest, you out of order. And Moshe got tripped up.
That
Not that the
part.
people were right, but the
Mhm.
mind slipped in the face of the Father.
Hmm.
James 3:1. Let us not all seek to be masters, but we know that we should receive the greater punishment. That was the case with Moshe.
Hmm.
Wasn't that
Mhm.
he was wrong, but it was a slip up that can happen when you get weary dealing with spiritual things.
Mhm.
It can happen to anybody. So we're supposed to be praying for one another.
That's right.
Mhm.
Even when we might not even be in the presence of one another even anymore.
Mhm.
But still don't be looking at nobody the wrong way. And when you in right standing with the Father, remember to intercede.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. Says they shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun strike them, nor any heat, because the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne shall shepherd them and lead them to fountains of waters of life. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. All praises. Revelation 21, verse 1. And I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth, for the former heavens and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. And I, Yehukanan Yakanan, saw the set apart city, renewed Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from Elohim, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the heaven saying, See, the booth,
Come on.
all praises. The tabernacle of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people. We've been hearing this ever since Genesis chapter 12. This is what we've been hearing. And Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, and there shall be no more pain, for the former matters have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, See, I make all matters new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are true and trustworthy. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Aleph and the Tau, the Alpha and Omega, as they will say, the beginning and the end. To the one who thirsts, I shall give of the fountain of water of life without payment. The one who overcomes shall inherit all this, and I shall be his Elohim, and he shall be my son. It means we got to do some overcoming.
Come on.
These cycles are prepared in a way to show us what we need to be overcoming. But as for the cowardly, what was they in the wilderness? And the untrustworthy and abominable and murderers and those who whore and drug sorcerers and idolaters and all the false, their part is in the lake which burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. And the 12 gates, and there were in the 12 gates were 12 pearls, jumping down to verse 21. Each one of the gates was a single pearl, and the street of the city was clean gold, like transparent glass. And I saw no dwelling place in it, for Yahuwah El Shaddai is its dwelling place, and the Lamb. And the city had no need of the sun nor of the moon to shine in it, for the esteem of Elohim lightened it, and the Lamb is its lamp. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the sovereigns of the earth bring their esteem into it, and its gates shall not be shut at all by day. For night shall not be there.
Come on.
For they shall bring the esteem and the appreciation of the nations into it. And there shall by no means enter into it whatever is what? Unclean. So the same thing that he was doing back then is still, this is the same. He changed. If not, he's not a man that he should. Oh, okay. Neither anyone doing abomination and falsehood, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. And then you just keep in mind that Moses was talking about this. Blot me out of your book. Oh, okay. So something that they knew even back then, or that he knew anyways, even back then, right? That was pointing to this. So yeah, just a moment to kind of look at that pic. It's been there the whole, for many slides now, but really like looking at that. What an amazing sight.
What an amazing sight.
Father trying to get us there, where his tabernacle, his dwelling place is in our midst. And not just in our midst, but within us, right? Do we not know that we are the temple of Elohim? This is what he's trying to do, so that we can all assemble and fight and war together as brothers, right? He said, no, when you cross over this land, you shall fight for your brother. These is all principles. Like all of this stuff was things that we were supposed to be learning in the carnal to translate over into the ruach, or the spiritual, to show us what it is that he's trying to do for us. So my closing, regards is really identify these cycles and identify these times, these seasons, to really self-reflect, really compare self to the Father's desire, to the wilderness, how we have a tendency to operate. Am I doing some of these same things? Are these same things? Is this same folly that was found in our fathers, like he said in Hebrews, is the same thing in us? Like, because they all, like, just like we all have an opportunity of Mashiach and immersion and all of these things. No, they all was in the wilderness. They all went there. They all drank of the same spiritual drink and same spiritual food. They all did all of them things together, but not many of them made it out. That whole first generation perished. So it's just something for us. And again, disclaimer, as I always say, like, ain't none of these lessons designed or tailor-made for not one, but for all. Self-included. Like, double-edged sword. Trust and believe. When the thing come cutting, it's cutting. It's gonna cut me as well. I'm not above nobody, and I ain't speaking as one that got it figured out. I'm just speaking as one that's, hey, this is what the Father is saying. Like, but he's saying it to me as well. Like, this season has been definitely a season of reflection and noticing things like, oh, nope, that was not like him. I gotta repent. I gotta apologize. I jumped the gun and I spoke on a matter. Shouldn't have. Like, nah, these is really things that he's showing us. Are you gonna complain during this time? Or are you complaining about what you ain't got? Man, I feel like I'm trying to can't get ahead. Or are you looking at what you do got? Like, these are the kind of meditations that we gotta have and keep the mind right. Philippians 4, what it's saying, right? Like, really get this thing, this mind and this heart under control. right? All praises. With that, I'm saying shalom.
All praises to the King of Glory.
All praises.
I mean, around the world, different factions may not agree with the nuances of what it means to serve the Father. But it seems like everybody's looking for that Psalm 91 experience.
Mhm.
That only happens when you're permitted to tabernacle with Him. So, yeah, this lesson's right on time. If it's not fit for us to tabernacle with Him, we're not going to get that experience.
Mhm.
It's 12 things to meditate on. All praises.
All praises.
Absolutely. Tov lesson made me think about too. Somewhere in there, either there was no fear, or the fear was lost. With Abi Yahuwah being in the midst of the camp, can you get used to looking at that daily? Cloud by day, fire by night. Cloud by day, fire by night. You know, can you get used to that in the middle, just sitting there? Just, you know, yeah, taking it for granted and losing the fear. So my prayer for all of us is that we fear Abi Yahuwah, trust Him, love Him, obey Him, and never take Him for granted. Though you know we can't physically see, He's definitely there, and He's alive. Doesn't sleep nor slumber. So that would be my prayer.
All praises.
And lastly, since I'm the last person left, no, I just echo exactly what Cody just said. You know, that we continue to fear Him, and just adding to that, just laying back and off of that, that we continue to just submit, to the Father in all areas uh, of our existence. And I say that as, like you were saying, like the Moray, like the Ak was saying, just the word is a two-edged sword. I say this being one who likes to control things. I just, my prayer for us all is that we like to submit, not like to, but yeah, actually that we like to submit to
All
the Father,
praises.
and that we that we enjoy submission unto the Father, and that we do it with a glad heart, with with a song in our heart, and melodies and meditations in our heart and on our mind. And that we just continue to draw nearer unto Him day in and day out as we, and again, I echo what the Ak was saying, that I'm glad these are rehearsals, because I know, listen, am I ready? No, no, no. I'm not ready. So that we just continue throughout all of these rehearsals, throughout every day that we wake up, we continue to draw closer unto the Father, and just allow Him to take over, and just trust Him at the helm of our lives, being the head of our lives. And just I pray it all the time, and I used to pray it all the time. I still do that. Father, don't give me a choice. Don't get, because I know me. I'm gonna choose every time. I'm going to agree with my flesh. I know me every single time. I'm going to agree with my flesh. Father, don't give me no choice. Just make me to do what you would have me to do. I give you full reign over me and over my life, because I will screw it up every single time. And so, yeah, I just echo what everybody else has said. And great lesson, Tov lesson. Definitely appreciate the word that have gone forth, and just the delving into the further and deeper meanings of these feast days as we're going through this feast day season, because it is still a time of uncovering and relearning. And these rehearsals is just a time to, I'm grateful He's allowing us to draw closer to Him in these moments. With that being said, may the Most High keep us. May the Most High be with us throughout our week. May He continue to shine and show favor upon us. May He make us exponentially more than we are as it is this day. And may that be for our toe and not for our destruction. All praises to the Most High. And as it says in the chat here, Shalom family, we definitely pray that y'all have a peaceful and restful evening as well. Definitely pray that everything that needs to be corrected and addressed get corrected and addressed, and that we not lose sight of Yah in the process. Absolutely, I stand in agreement with the sister in the chat. My good
All
sister,
praises.
Ahava. I love you, sis. All right. Love you all. Oh, before we go ahead and get off too, I do want to bid everybody a Tov Sukkot that is going through Sukkot, whether you have finished it or that whether you are in the midst of it at this time. I want to wish you all or bid you all a Tov Sukkot. And if you have little ones or know somebody with little ones, guess what? Our Promised Child Feast Day book is completed. Yay! So definitely check us out on Facebook and download the free, and it's free. It is free. We made that at no cost because why are we going to charge you for the word? Like, what? So it is at no cost to you. Just download the PDF file. It's like 30 something pages in that bad boy of, coloring pages of, secret messages. Like you got to decode. I try to make, we try to make it fun activities, right? We try to make it fun for the little people so they can, they get to cut out their own little feast day decorations and stuff. We try to make it, a little fun for the little people and the little hands and stuff to keep them occupied during this feast day season, and talks about all of the fall feasts this time around. And so definitely check us out on Facebook and follow the link. We did share it on there. Check us out also on Hebrew Connect, which is like Facebook, but for us, uses, And I ain't gonna, do too much asking and nothing like that, you know what I'm saying? But once we get to a certain number of subscribers, then maybe we'll be able to share things on a community tab. So I know message is gonna hit where it need to hit and everything, but if you see something or hear something that might be beneficial to you, then maybe it's beneficial to someone else. Share it. And if the Most High allows them or leads somebody to subscribe, we're going to hit the number that we need to hit. And then you'll be hearing me say, find it on our community tab instead of check us out on Facebook, because I know a lot of people try to stay away from Facebook anyway. So, But with that being said, all right, y'all, shalom. We done ate. Now we about to go eat.
All praises.
Shalom.
All praises. Thank you for that. Somebody said they shared on their community tab and in the prayer group. Listen, go to the Facebook page, download the PDF and share that too. And if you got people who got little ones, then listen, do all the sharing. We appreciate it. All praises. All right. Let me. Oh, there it is. Okay, no, now this time we're going to say shalom and be gone because I had some technical difficulties right there.
Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.